Hi everyone, it's Gigabeef here. Today we're going to look at the lowest recoil M4 that money can buy, which is the Jailbreak M4. The Jailbreak is a special recoil reducing muzzle device that is only compatible with two specific handguards in the game, and is the keystone to this build because it lets you apply another compensator afterwards to double up the recoil reduction. So stick around and let's get going. Alright, so today I'm not just going to put this gun together and be like, ta-da, super low recoil, have fun guys. What I want to do instead is explain the steps we take to understand why we get to this build through the various compatibilities and alternatives available to us. Hopefully this will help you decide what you want to do on your own builds, whether you have all traders unlocked or still have a ways to go. You don't need to target the best recoil in the game to have a good weapon, so definitely use this guide as a framework for inspiration so that you can make your own that works with your playstyle, experience, and most importantly, your cash balance. M4s are not the easiest weapons to mod, because certain pieces overlap, mods aren't compatible with each other, there's a bunch of different barrels too which work or don't work with different handguards, never mind all of the mounts that you need to use for foregrips and attachments. Take for example pistol grips and stocks. Some stocks give you both a stock and a grip, some only give you one, some need a buffer tube first. It can all start to unravel pretty quickly when you start looking into it. For this one, there are some fundamental things that we need to know first so that we're targeting the right build from the outset, and in this case, the reason why this build is better on recoil than all of the others is down to the Jailbreak and the compensator combination. It is well known that with muzzle devices for the M4, you can attach both a compensator and then a suppressor afterwards. Both components have a recoil reduction stat, so combining them together, you can achieve some extreme benefits. The best of these combinations is the Daniel's Defense comp and suppressor, which gives 7% for the comp, 7% for the suppressor afterwards, and gives 14% total reduction for the muzzle. However, if we check out the Jailbreak, we get 7% from this too, but we can add any of the compensators on top of that we want. The downside being that the Jailbreak itself blocks adding a suppressor. So tough luck, we're just going to have to go loud and proud with this one. Given we can't suppress, we'll want to pick the best single piece comp possible, which is actually the Bulletech with minus 11%. Between these two we can get to minus 18%, which is kind of ridiculous. This is the crux of the build and everything else stems from here. By the way, for investigating a build like this, the preset screen is absolutely invaluable. Given it can be quite complicated, firstly you don't have to buy anything, and secondly the system tells you what is or isn't compatible, which allows you to mess around with your heart's content and use the stats panel to check out what kind of recoil and ergo that we're getting to. It would be amazing if they could show the mod stats when you mouse over a part, but given that isn't in the game yet, rather than backing out of this screen all the way to the flea market, you can instead just press Find Parts, remove the Traders Only bit at the top, and double click on the pieces here. It's not ideal, but it saves us from flipping too much between different screens. So moving back along the weapon, the next piece of backward compatibility that we get into is around barrels and handguards. Typically for a low recoil build, we'd want the longest possible barrel that we can get our hands on, as Tarkov usually provides improved recoil for these, which it does in this case of the M4. However, the two barrels of this type, which are 20-inch and the 18-inch, are actually not compatible with the Jailbreak, so we can't use them. The only ones which are compatible are the standard M4 370mm barrel, the 406 ADAR barrel, and the Super Shorty 260mm. The first two both have the same recoil stat, and the M4 one is more accurate. It's unlikely that we're going to be turning an M4 DAR into this gun, so let's stick with the M4's standard 370mm. I'm also not entirely sure why you'd make a low recoil version with the short M4 barrel, but it might be quite funny as a factory cannon so you can fit it better in narrow spaces. It will have less than optimal recoil though. As we come on to handguards, it's actually pretty straightforward. The Jailbreak says on it in the description, can only be installed on Salient Arms handguards. There are two in the game, one long 14.5-inch one and a short 10-inch one. The long one is typical for this build as it gives minus 3% recoil reduction and is actually compatible with the barrel that we want to use. The short one is for the mini M4 barrel that we looked at a second ago, which also gives a 3% benefit to recoil. 5 seconds before we continue, please don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Let's get on with the build. Next up we'll grab a foregrip. If we're focusing only on recoil, it's a simple choice given the RK2 gives minus 5% recoil, which is better than all of the others on this stat. Now I personally don't use this one that much because it provides negative ergo and is quite expensive, but we're going to slap it on with the ergonomics sacrificed on the altar of the low recoil god anyway. We'll need a Magpul M-Lock 4.1 guide to make it fit. For upper receivers, this is also fairly straightforward. There's no strange compatibility or overlapping issues, so we just pick the best one, which is the VL Tor. Now stocks and pistol grips can be kind of tricky as I mentioned before, because of the different variations that are possible. The best standalone stock is the double star Ace SOCOM with minus 38% recoil and 3 ergo, as it can take a recoil pad that takes it to minus 41% and 4 ergo overall. If we go down the buffer tube route, we want to be using the SI Advanced tube for the minus 4% recoil it provides. And yes, the normal one, we're not going down that route. The red one only gives a little more accuracy, is firing range only, and at the moment is over 60k. The best all-in stock is the Hera Arms CQR, which gives minus 39% recoil and plus 18 ergo. But remember, with this one you don't get any ergo benefits separately from a pistol grip as it's all one unit. Its recoil is best in slot however, because this also goes with the SI Advanced tube to give you a combined minus 43% overall. However, with separate parts you can eke out a touch more ergo for the same recoil. Two standalone stocks give best in slot recoil at minus 39% each, or minus 43% again with the SI, which are the MFT bus and the HK E1. The E1 has a little more ergo at 3 versus the 1 of the bus. But the trick here is that because they're stocks only, you can use a pistol grip of your choice. The HK Ergo style pistol grip is the lifeline of all chads around the world. Normally in EFT you have to choose between recoil or ergo, but with this grip, no matter what sins you've committed in the name of making a laser beam monstrosity, you can fix it with money. Slap this bad boy on to give yourself plus 18 ergonomics. Just before we move on to some of the little extra tweaks you can do to improve the ergo stat a bit more, let's touch on a little cheap trick to get the recoil down by one more point. The only other place you can get a recoil bonus is on the EKP site. This is generally not used in low recoil builds, normally because you don't want to have to use the EKP to get to that level. If you do however, you get another minus 1% recoil. This takes our overall build to a vertical recoil of 31, which I think is pretty insane. On the remaining points of ergonomics, the EKP actually gives us a bit of a nasty minus 6, but we can mitigate 1 point with the Cobra shade. For gas blocks, only 2 are compatible and the J Enterprises 5B gives plus 2 ergo. On charging handles, the Raptor charger is the highest at plus 3. Then we have one final sneaky trick up our sleeve, which is that the Magpul Embus sights give 1 ergo each. We don't care about using them, but we'll take the ergo to get the best that we can. You can also grab a mag of your choice. They pretty much just remove ergonomics depending on which one you pick. The meta one is the circular 60 rounder, as it removes less ergo at minus 12 than the more standard looking 60 rounder which removes 15. They're both either available on the flea or with a barter trade for 2 circuit boards and a filter respectively. If you're going full meme, you could grab a 100 rounder, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone use this given its minus 27 ergo. If 60 shots isn't enough, it's unlikely the extra 40 is going to help. I'm not going to count these in the final score of ergonomics, because you can kind of choose what you want here and it really depends on what you pick. So with everything we've added here, we get to an overall recoil of 31 and an ergonomics of 78. Pretty sweet. If we check on the fine parts screen, buying everything will cost us somewhere around 275k for the entire build, which is minimising recoil and then maximising ergo without any recoil sacrifice. I think it's often useful to see how the best possible build fits together, to put in context how far we want to go with it in our own builds. The last few points of recoil or ergo are typically not worth it, given they cost so much and have negligible impact on the real performance of the weapon. I can't imagine many people are running the most extreme high-end versions of any gun, but it acts as an important template to show us what is possible. So remember to sub and hit the bell if you want to see more videos like this in future. You can also follow me on Twitter, and I stream on Twitch on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturday evenings UK time. Until then, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.